Welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, where we take things from movies, TV shows, pop culture, try to create them in the real world and test them one-on-one from the media that they come from. Now in today's episode we're going to be taking a look at something interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of caveats. This one's going to be an interesting one, but I've been looking forward to getting to this because it is the furyian ulaks from the Chronicles of Riddick series. Now, the Chronicles of Riddick, all the movies, they hold a special place in my heart simply because it's like that early 2000s dark fantasy type stuff. And it may not be the biggest franchise, but I was a kid, I thought it was cool, I liked it, whatever, right? These weapons here are interesting because I feel like it's a 50-50 toss-up whether they're mole ninja trash or have some practicality, because there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on. So what we're going to be doing is putting these to the test, see if they're good. There's going to be a lot of caveats with a lot of the things I say in today's episode, I feel, but I feel like it should be a fun episode. I'm really excited to test these things finally. Furyian ulaks, is that how you say it? What's even funnier is these things aren't very present in the Chronicles of Riddick, like the movies. I'm pretty sure they made an appearance which was rather brief, relatively speaking, and I was on the cover. It's fascinating to see how iconic, I say iconic, the Chronicles of Riddick isn't really a huge franchise either. You see what I mean by the caveats in today's episode. Let's get into it. These should be fun. I'm interested. I want to see how they work. I want to see what they're like to swing around and to use. Furyian ulaks, let's get into it. So there's no build for the Riddick blades. I just purchased them as is. All I did was put an edge on them so that they're sharp and can cut, and did a little bit of weathering because they looked very mole ninja. We are out here. We have got our Furyian ulaks. I think that's how you say it. I think these are very complicated, and there might be a couple of caveats here. I feel like this episode might be a little bit more than I originally planned. A couple of preliminary thoughts. First off, I've got zero reach. They have literally zero reach. It's almost negative reach. To hit something, I pretty much have to be here. I have to slice like that, and even then getting through a target is going to be really difficult. Then on top of that, when it comes to thrusting or hitting, again, to hit with these, I basically have to come down on a target, which limits my vectors of attack. And for a good comparison, here I have a regular standard $4 kitchen knife. So we're going to be comparing the ulaks to just a stock standard knife. First off, let's try and do some cuts and or thrusts on a pool noodle. Very simple, very stock standard when it comes to weapons. So the Furyian ulaks. I hit that, but it did not cut all the way through. That was quite difficult. As opposed to something like a regular knife, for example, I have reach and I'm able to do the same sort of cut much quicker and still be far away from my target. I mean, relatively speaking, as you can see. So, slicing, not as good as a regular blade, a regular knife. Now, the reason why that's important is because any sort of weapon, it doesn't matter what it is, you kind of want reach with them because that keeps your opponent away from you, right? You don't want your opponent to close that distance. However, with a particular blade like this, I have to get so close to be able to use it. I am in measure of the opponent. Cutting with them, starting off with our slicing. Ugh. Okay, so that one kind of went in, got stuck though. That's an interesting dynamic. Ooh, that does not feel nice in the hand. Like, this is a very aggressive curve to actually be able to cut through something. And because you have no reach with them, you're unable to do it. How does this compare to a regular $4 kitchen knife? Well, you can see the clear night and day difference here. you know, especially if they don't have a weapon and they are unarmed, you don't have to get too close to them. I can cut from this way, that way, I can stab this way, I can reverse grip it and stab like that, how you would with the furyian ulaks. But when it comes to this one, how does it want to be used? I feel like that's a good way of describing it. Would I want to use them perhaps like this? I have a little bit more reach now. Perhaps I can could do a cut. That was much better. Much better than before. So let's try that again. It did a cut. Okay, I'm able to keep them at range, I'm able to stab, I'm even able to, ooh, that's an interesting, when I hold it like this, I am already kind of curving into a target. If you're enjoying today's episode, you should consider subscribing. It's free after all, and it really helps out the channel. I would really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. All right, let's try a water bottle. I mean, when it comes to, you know, actually hitting with them, I mean, they are beautiful when it off. I mean, let's try a slice now. Kinda. Again, trying a slice. That doesn't look like a lot of reach, but it's a lot. Then when it comes to actually cutting through a target, when I go through, I can get all the way through something. When it comes to this one, I have to basically be touching the target to get all the way through, and then on top of that, because of the way that your body works, the biomechanics, right? To actually flick this, because with a knife, you want to kind of flick it to get extra speed at the tip to be able to slice through anything. As an example, like that. Slices through beautifully. When it comes to something like this, because of how you're holding it, it makes it very difficult to generate that extra bit of speed at the tip, which makes it worse as a slashing weapon. Now, before anybody comments this isn't a slashing weapon, we have like a 7-8 inch edge on it. It's also a curved weapon. This should be fantastic at slashing, and that's why when I look at this, how would I use it? I would probably actually use it like this. It guards my hand, relatively speaking. Then on top of that, if you have a second one, use that one like that. So then you have two of them. Then you can use it for those extra punchy shots where you bring it right down on your target and jam it in. You still have that option. But in terms of keeping someone at reach, keeping someone at bay, something like this is a lot better. Personally, that's how I would view it. But let's hit Tony now. Let's see what it's like to hit something a little bit more solid. And specifically something more so like armor. Because having extra force to get through armor is perhaps a valid reason why the ulaks are shaped the way they are. There's a big counterpoint to that, but being able to generate a lot more force right on that tip to get through maybe some armor, some soft armor, and you have no risk of your hand slipping onto the blade. If you let go, your hand just falls out of the way. However, the big caveat to that is most daggers and proper blades do have some sort of guard to stop your hand sliding onto the blade. Even with a kitchen knife, you can still do the exact same thing. So they all can kind of, you know, generate a lot of force on that tip because they're all meant to do that. I just don't think that that is a huge selling point when it comes to these blades. So what about something like these little blade catchers? Now, is that what they're for? I don't know. That's kind of what they look like though. Would I consider these to be actual legitimate tools for catching a blade? You know, somebody's coming in for a shot and you catch a blade like that. No, I do not consider that to be valid. First off, because you have no reach, you are unable to catch the blade at a distance from you. That means you have to basically catch it here, and if you don't, it's going to hit you. So catching blades with those little nubbins, I don't consider to be particularly useful. So, sorry Tony, I didn't mean to threaten you like that. That's why I think about it, when you switch it around, you still have a lot of the same benefits of this blade with taking away some of the drawbacks. I still want to be clear here. I think a regular blade is still a lot better, but I can still generate a shit ton of force using it like that. On top of that, I have that little bit extra reach. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. And I'm still able to generate that force. On top of that, I can actually slash with it, which is obviously a good thing. Here we have some male and a gambeson. Let's see how much force and if we can get through both of them. Let's try it the way that Riddick uses them. Got stopped. I think it is well and truly time that we get to Tyrant's initial thoughts score, or tits for short. Now, these are interesting because I don't think that they are completely useless, because any sort of force multiplier is better than nothing at the end of the day. However, compared to a regular knife, just a regular standard stock, even like this is a kitchen knife, I don't think these are better. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some virtues there. For example, I do like that the knife itself can kind of guard your hand, right? It itself is a guard. However, how useful would that be in a practical, realistic sense? Well, that's a little harder to answer. In terms of generating force though, I do think that obviously you're basically reverse gripping it, you're driving it down. I do like that, and I do like that there isn't a chance that your hand will accidentally slip onto the blade, but a blade with like a rondel dagger, right? Something that has a guard will stop your hand from slipping down anyway. I do think that the biggest drawback of this particular blade design is that you have no reach. Now, think about it like this. How would you compare a weapon like this? What would be the scenario? Well, in most situations, you'd be fighting a weapon of equivalent size and destructive power, right? For example, you put a sword against a sword, you put a spear against a spear, or maybe like a halberd or whatever, right? But you don't put like a knife against a sword, because then the sword wins. You don't put a sword against a gun, because then the gun wins. So when it comes to something like this, you put this knife against another knife, and it still kind of comes up short. But that doesn't mean it's wholesale useless. Like I said earlier, force multiplier is a force multiplier. A weapon is better than no weapon at the end of the day. So, starting off, let's get into comfort. How does this feel in the hand? I mean, I do like how this contours to the hand. This is quite comfortable holding it like this. Holding it like this is also relatively comfortable. So I don't have too much of an issue when I was cutting things, when I was driving it down on things. It didn't feel terrible. It felt very equivalent to a regular knife, so that's like an 8. It's comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a comfortable, ergonomic handle. So then we get into the design itself. The design. I don't think it's it's not useful. I wouldn't pick this. If you had to, you laid out a table of knives and you said, pick one and go have a knife fight, I don't think I would pick it. But at the same time, if this is all I had, it is what it is, right? So in terms of design, I think 5 is reasonable. It's still very deadly. It still can be used. How you use it, in this case, I feel like will dictate how useful the design is, right? This isn't a weapon problem, more of a user error type thing. I think using it like this is a little bit more useful than like this, personally. Wieldability, again, this kind of follows on from the design. It's kind of how you use it. How Riddick uses it with, 2 blades, basically reverse gripping. I mean, yeah, you can use it. The biggest issue that I have is you have 0 reach. Whenever you want to hit something, you have to basically be on top of it. And the only way to actually drive these points down into something is also to be basically on top of it. You have no space in using them. So, using them like this though, you've got some reach, you've got some, it still acts as a guard for your hand. I don't mind it terribly. It's still not better than a regular design, but this sort of way, I don't hate it. Let me put it that way. So for wieldability, like I said, it's a user type thing. 6. It's kind of right in the middle. There's not really anything egregious about them. They handle like regular knives. It's just whether you reverse grip them or you have them facing forward. Use a preference, really. And then lastly, we get into the effectiveness. I mean, again, it's kind of how you use them. I am more than happy to give these an 8 for effectiveness, simply because they are very sharp, very long, pointy knives. That's effective no matter what. I mean, if you don't believe me, go ask people in the UK. Like, what do you expect here? And that gives us a final score of 27 out of 40. I mean, that's kind of reasonable, you know? Are they Mall Ninja or are they legit? There are some benefits here. There are some things that, you know, if you change up how you use them, I think they would be perfectly reasonable. Are they better than a proper dagger? Personally, I don't think so, but that doesn't mean wholesale that they are just completely trash, throw them out. At least in my opinion. But that's going to be all for today's episode, guys. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. And if you want to become a channel member and help support this type of content, I would genuinely appreciate it, and it helps the channel keep going. That's all for today's episode, guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, I'll see you next week in another episode. Have a good one.